We've been on a video series talking about community, in particular talking about community from the Christian perspective. And so if you haven't checked out any of the videos, we talked on some of the why behind the what. Why is community important? Even some of the what do I think happens, what are some of the negative effects that I think happen if we don't have community? Some of the things that I think differentiate Christian community from some of the community we tend to be geared towards outside of Christianity, where we tend to be more geared towards things that are based on status gain or networking, things that are more transactional than they are relational. Not that that's what all non-Christian relationships are like, but that is a cultural focus. And so I've done some videos on some of those, but in this one, I wanted to talk about some myths that I think surround community. And again, I'm particularly talking about from the Christian perspective, Christian community, engaging in community with other people with the kind of the foundation of Christianity as kind of the thing that is underneath it's the current that runs through everything that we do as Christians, right? And so we're going to talk about some myths that I think they're common. I've heard them a lot, especially this first one that I'm going to talk about. Almost every time that I post about community and the importance of gathering with people, I get some version of this first myth, which the myth is something like this. I don't need community. I don't like people, so I don't want to be around people. I don't like people, so I don't need to be around people. I'm an introvert, so I don't need community. It's all of that kind of wrapped up together, and it can be said in different words. But ultimately, what it really boils down to is I'm fine just by myself. And the first thing that I want to say about this is that if we are Christians, right, if you're a Christian, you don't get to not like people. Right? It might not come naturally to you. You might be more of an introvert. You might have a hard time getting along with people. You might genuinely be able to say like, man, I really have a hard time liking people. But as Christians, that we just don't get to do that. We are supposed to love the people around us. We're supposed to, even like we have a command from Jesus even to love our enemies. So we're supposed to love the people around us. So just, I'm not even going to spend a lot of time on that, but it's just if you are a Christian, you don't get to do that. You don't get to not like people. But I think beyond that, the idea that we don't need community, or that maybe if you're an introvert, you don't really need to be around other people, you're comfortable by yourself. Again, comfort isn't really the question. It's what is best for us. What has God called us to? God has called us to community with other people, and community with other people is good for us. And so I want to speak to a couple of different aspects of this myth. And the first is that we all need community. God designed us for community. Even in the beginning, when we see Adam created in the book of Genesis, God says it's not good that he's alone, right? And so he provides a wife for him, which, what is that? That's an intimate form of community, right? And so ever since the beginning, man needed community, needed somebody else to live life together with. And Jesus even lived in community, right? He had the 12 disciples that he traveled everywhere with, and he poured into them and he served them. And I think one of the things that stands out to me most about community, this isn't the only thing, but I think this is one of the reasons that we need community, and this idea that like whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, it's really easy for you to get along with people or it's difficult for you to get along with people. One of the reasons that we need other people is because God grows us through other people. When we interact with other viewpoints from our own, when we interact with people that come from different backgrounds than we do, who grew up differently than we do, who have different preferences than we do, all of those kinds of things, they shape us, they form us, they help us to learn to love others well, they help us to be less selfish. All of these things are aspects of why it's so important to be around other people. But at the very base of all of it, I think it's just the idea that God designed us for community. We're supposed to be around other people. God designed us that way. He wouldn't have made humanity in such a way that we would propagate more humans. He wouldn't have said, be fruitful and multiply, if we weren't supposed to be around other humans. And so Also, I think one thing that we have to remind ourselves, if you are a person who it's not as natural to you, it's a bit of a sacrifice to get around other people. One, it doesn't, you don't need to be around a huge group of people. Maybe you are introverted, like different personalities do exist. I'm a pretty extroverted person. My wife is a pretty introverted person, and that's okay. So I like to be around big groups of people. It doesn't drain me. When my wife is around big groups of people, it drains her. She needs to like go home and take a nap afterwards. She needs a little me time, right? And that's fine. So this isn't to diminish that or to say introversion isn't a real thing or that you shouldn't listen to that, that internal part of yourself that says, I'm more of an introvert. I like to be around less people. But being around less people does not mean being around no people. And if it is difficult for you, I would just say this. Part of the Christian life is the call to self-sacrifice. We sacrifice ourselves, we sacrifice our own preferences, we sacrifice our own comfort many times and in many different ways for the people around us. And this is one of the things, like Christ sacrificed himself for us, and he has called us to sacrifice ourselves for others. And so this is one of the areas where we get to practice that. So again, maybe you are an introvert. You don't have to be around. You don't have to be the Great Gatsby. You know what I mean? You don't have to have a whole town of people over to your house. But who's one person or two people? Who's a couple people that you can get yourself around, be an intentional community with, love them, serve them, grow in relationship with each other, and grow in community? Who are those people? Get around those people. Okay. Myth number 2. Is, again, this could be, all of these could be said different ways, but I'll kind of boil this one down to just one, is I just don't have the money for social gatherings. I don't have the money to host people. I don't have the money to be going out with people. I don't have the money to do this. And I think this is a huge myth of our culture because we feel like there's always got to be some kind of like big event, which I'll talk more about this even in some of the other myths. But the truth is, it just doesn't take a lot of money to gather together with people. There are all kinds of things that you can do that take zero money to gather together with people. You can do things that, obviously you can do things that cost money. You can go to concerts, you can go out to eat, you can go to restaurants, you can host people at your house and buy all kinds of goods and food and party supplies and whatever, You can do all of that, but you don't have to do any of that. In most places, there are things like public parks. There are things like public libraries. A deck of cards costs like $3, right? You can buy a deck of cards and learn some card games. I'm actually going to do some videos in this series where I'm going to teach some card games because this is one of my favorite ways to gather with people that's really inexpensive. It's a lot of fun, and it takes like no prep time. You just buy a $3 deck of cards and it lasts a pretty long time. You can play all kinds of games with it. And so what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I think where this comes from in some ways is like we watch too much HGTV, we watch too many things that where to gather people together, you feel like it has to be a huge deal. It has to be you have to be hosting a big party. Everything has to be elaborate and beautiful and elegant. And the truth is that's just not the case. And honestly, I can tell you one of the things when my wife and I go somewhere, we go visit somebody at their house or somebody invites us over. My wife has told me before she actually loves it when we go, and it's not super spectacular. It's not super elegant. It's just somebody's home that they live in day to day. And maybe there's some dishes on the table, or there's kids' toys laying in the living room, and they've still invited us in because honestly, there's a level of intimacy to that you're being welcomed into somebody's life. And so I would just encourage you to not feel like you have to spend all this money and make it super elegant and do all of that kind of stuff. But what's just something really simple you can do? Can you afford a cup of coffee? Can you buy somebody a cup of coffee? Can you afford to have somebody over to your house and make a pot of coffee, or make a pot of tea, or put some crackers and cheese on the table? Like, it doesn't take a lot to practice a little bit of hospitality, but that little bit of hospitality will go a long way. So it's just a myth that you need to spend all of this kind of money and really try to impress people. You don't need to impress people. You just need to love people and gather them in and spend time and spend community or build community with people. The third myth is there's just nothing to do in my town. I live in a small town, there's nothing to do. I live in a small city, there's nothing to do. There's just nothing to do. So how am I supposed to have gatherings with people? How am I supposed to build community with people when there's nothing to do? And honestly, some of the same answers I said for the last one, I would say for this. invite people to your home. This is the biggest thing. That's actually why I'm doing this video right here where I'm doing it. I'm in my living room right now. You can see back behind me here, this is our like game shelf because we have kind of invested in a bunch of games over the years, me and my wife, since we've been married, and we invite people over and we play games. I'm not just telling you guys to do this. This is something that I practice, but I'm just in my living room right now, or excuse me, in my dining room. And that's on purpose because what I'm trying to tell you is that you can just invite people into your home, right? I've invited you into my home right now, okay? Even though we've got, this ugly printer that's up here that doesn't look good or match anything in this room, but this is where, we do schoolwork with our kids, and this is where, we print stuff off for our small business, and it's just the space that we live in. And so we've got a printer here, we've got, our files here and the laptop, and, we've got all of our games right here. And if you could see the table behind this, there's papers on the table and coffee mugs on the table because I sell coffee mugs with a side business. Like, this is just the house that we live in, right? And so there's things all over the place because it's where we live, but we invite people in. And so there's nothing to do in your town. Okay, well, do you have a home? Do you have an apartment? Can you invite somebody into your apartment, into your house? Well, then you've got something to do, okay? But also, I'm sure there's a park in your town. I'm sure there's a library in your town. I'm sure there's a coffee shop in your town. Maybe there's not every one of those things, but I bet there's at least one of those things, right? Maybe there's a playground in your town by the local school. You can go and you can play basketball. Maybe you're not a basketball player. Well, you can learn how. The point that I'm trying to make is that there's nothing to do is an excuse. There is something to do. You just have to go do it, okay? And then I would say this too, that gathering, it's not just about entertainment, right? So it's not just about the things that you're doing, although I'm all about having fun when we gather together. I'm all about fun when we have community, when we're building community, but who you're doing it with is a lot more important than what it is that you're doing. And this is why, something just as simple as I've mentioned it already, something like playing a game of cards, playing board games, these kinds of things. That's why they can be so good, because it's less about what you're doing and it's more about who you're doing it with. And so what I would say, what are some of your hobbies? What are some of the things that you enjoy doing? You live where you live, so you must be able to do those things where you live, or otherwise they wouldn't be your hobbies. So who can you just invite in to do your hobbies with you? I play golf, for instance, and so one thing that I do is I invite people to golf all the time because I'm already going to be going, and so I'll invite them in. Even if we're not playing a round of golf, I'll invite people to go to the driving range just to go hit some balls together and hang out together. Again, play cards, play chess, play whatever. There are things to do. So this is a myth. This is an excuse. This is a way that you can just try to get yourself out of community. Don't let it work anymore, okay? It's a myth. It's busted. Myth busted, right? There's stuff to do. The fourth is my house just isn't nice enough to invite people over. And again, I kind of spoke to this already in the first or the second one and in the last one, and that's why I told you why I've done this video, where I've done it, where we're in my house and you can see kind of the stuff around me. This isn't HGTV, right? I said it once, I'll say it again. This isn't television. Nobody expects you to have this huge, magnificent, amazing house that's spotless and modern and has all the best furniture, and it has the perfect floor plan and the perfect kitchen to host people and all. Nobody actually cares about all of that, right? And if there are people who do care about all that and they're genuinely going to be disappointed, right? Then just invite somebody else. Invite somebody else to your house. Don't invite that person, or invite them, and then when they say something rude, say, okay, I'm not going to invite you again. I'll invite somebody else, right? Like you don't have to have this big magnificent house to just invite people in to your home and to love on people. And then again, I said it once already. I talked about my wife, how she actually enjoys going somewhere where people have invited her in, and there's toys on the floor, and there's maybe some dishes on the table or whatever, because we've just been invited in to share somebody's life. I would again encourage you, just invite people in. If you've got kids, people know you're gonna have, fingerprints on the windows. People know you're gonna have toys on the floor. People know they might sit down and sit on a Cheerio. Like, people know this, right? Especially if they've had kids of their own. Don't let that deter you. People are a lot more understanding than you think they are. It's not TV. Nobody expects it to be TV, so don't worry about that. Life isn't picture perfect all the time, and we know that. And if anybody doesn't know that, honestly, maybe you get to be the person that shows them. You get to be the person that gives them a little reality check that this is what real life is like. Welcome to it. And then, hey, why don't you live life together with me, okay? Myth 5 is, and this is one that's, again, we've been talking a lot about Christian community as opposed to other kinds of community. So this is a little bit more specific to Christian community. I just don't know enough about the Bible. And the only reason that this is a myth is because for some reason Christians feel like when they have people over, it always has to be a Bible study or a worship night or something that's like very Bible centric or worship centric. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done that in the past. I used to have a weekly Bible study where I would invite people over on Thursday nights and we would jump into the Bible and do some Bible study, and then we would hang out. And I was just out of college at this time, so we would like hang out and play video games together, meet a bunch of the guys and stuff. And so like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what I am saying is, first off, just because it's community and just because you're Christians doesn't mean it has to be Bible centered or worship centered. It can be those things. You can pray together, you can worship together, you can read the Bible together, but you can also just hang out. But I would also say you don't need to be a Bible expert to be a good Christian. That's one of the things that you can do together is you can jump into the Bible and get to know it more together. You get to jump in and learn and maybe watch video series or video classes together, or you get to jump in and read commentaries together. There's opportunity for all that for you to actually grow together, but you don't have to feel like you got to know all of this stuff. I've got to be a great preacher, a great Bible teacher. I've got to know all of this stuff to be able to have community. That's just not true. Just live life together with people. I would say that if our lives are Christ-centered, if we are Christians, then probably it will be unavoidable that at some point you're going to have topics come up, questions are going to come up, you're going to have conversations about your relationship with God, about what you believe, about maybe what Bible you've been reading, or about what sermons you've been listening to. And so be open to talk about those things. Just share your personal experience, share what's really been going on. It's an opportunity for intimacy. Again, it's an opportunity for growth. So don't shy away from that when it happens. That could be a really good opportunity for you to learn from and grow from the people around you. Could be a good opportunity for them to learn from and grow from you. So don't shy away from that, but that doesn't have to be the center and the purpose for every gathering that you have. You can just live life together and have some fun together. Finally, kind of wrapping things up, one of the whole reasons that I'm doing this series on community is because I've been more and more convinced over the last several years. I've always been somebody who's more extroverted. I've always loved being around people and gathering people together and doing activities and doing hobbies and playing sports. I've always been this kind of person, but I've just been more and more convinced over the last several years that these things are without trying to over spiritualize it, like these are holy moments. These are holy moments that we get to spend with each other where we're just living life together. And particularly if you're Christians, then underneath every interaction, you know, like God is in it. God created the world that we live in. He created us, and He created us to live relationally with each other. So there are all these opportunities as we're gathering with people to grow together, to grow in relationship with each other, and to grow in relationship with God. And so these are incredible opportunities. These are amazing moments. And I love C.S. Lewis talks about in various different ways and in different works that he has, but he talks about humans as being immortals. He talks about humans as being, you know, we are basically on the eternal trajectory towards being either basically like angels or demons, right? And so we're on this journey together of hopefully growing more and more Christ-like as we live, knowing that we are eternal and the people around us are also eternal. So we get this opportunity to live life together with other people who, if we take the Bible seriously, are going to live forever in eternity, either with God or separated from God. And ultimately, we should desire that anybody who is right now separated from God by sin, that they would come into relationship with God, that they would experience salvation and atonement and get to live forever in eternity with God, with us and God, right? We should desire that. And so every opportunity for community that we have is an opportunity for that to happen. If it's with people who do not share our faith, but with people who do share our faith, we know they're already on that trajectory. They're already a part of the kingdom of heaven that we're a part of. And so all of these opportunities are opportunities for us to grow together into the kinds of people that God wants us to grow into. And again, that doesn't mean that everything has to be Bible-centered or worship-centered, but worship is the foundation for everything that we do. So we can understand that while I'm playing golf with a friend, we're worshiping because we're having good, loving community together in the world that God created. When I'm playing games, when I'm playing cards, when I'm having a good conversation, when I'm telling a funny story or a funny joke, when we're having deep, moving conversation, when we're walking through grief together, all of these things are opportunities for us to be growing together and for us to be honestly coming to know God more, coming to see God's hand at work more in our lives. And so I'm just more and more convinced of this. And so for me, like, I can't help but want to invite people over more. I can't help but want to spend more time with people. I can't help but want to do better with the time that I have with my own family, with my wife and with my kids, to recognize these moments for what they are. These are gifts from God, and we can squander them or we can lean into them. And so that's with every type of relationship that we have, from our spouse to our kids to our parents to our friends to our coworkers, to people that we share hobbies with, we share sports fields with, classmates, enemies. Every single one of these is an opportunity for us to interact with somebody else who's a child of God, that He wants to have an eternity with Him, and that we get the opportunity to grow together with. So I would just encourage you, don't let any of these myths or any other myth that maybe I didn't talk about, don't let these pull you away from the opportunity that we have to live life together with people, grow in loving relationship with each other, and grow in loving relationship with God. Hey, listen, if there's something that has helped you with leaning into community with the people around you, and especially if you're somebody who's like, you know what, I'm somebody who it doesn't come naturally to, here's some of the things that I've done to help out or to lean more into this as I recognized that this was something that God wanted me to do. I would love to hear from you. Maybe you're somebody who you've got some feedback, maybe you disagree. Depending on what you disagree with, I think you're wrong. I'm just going to say it now. Like, we need community. But you can tell me in the comments anyways and tell me how silly you think I am. So, but hey, thank you guys so much for watching this. And then, like I said, I'm going to have some more videos coming out in this series where we're going to talk about some card games, because this is one of my favorite things to do with people, is invite them to my house and just play some cards, play some games together. And so if that is something you're interested in, make sure that you check out those card game videos and start inviting people over to your house or to your apartment or to a coffee shop and play some games together while you get to know each other and grow together. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you out next time.